Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Build in Public podcast. I am KP, your host, and I'm super, super, super thrilled, which used to be my catchphrase, Shamir, the super, 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 the three supers, um, to come back on the podcast, come back to the show, and really get this going, after I feel like a couple months of a break. To make things easy for me, I've chosen as the first guest of this sort of the series of new episodes to be someone who's close and dear to my heart, someone who I don't need to prep so hard. I don't need to worry so much about the performance of the podcast. Someone who can have with whom I can have just a honest and authentic and a simple heart-to-heart conversation from a founder to founder. Without further ado, I am excited, thrilled, just blown away and happy to have Shamir Allibhai to join us, on the show. Shamir, CEO of
Oh,
Eddie, welcome to Build in
hey,
Public Podcast.
I'm so honored to be here, and I always love chatting with you. I also feel really strongly about you, and it's been amazing to get to know you so nicely and sort of seeing your journey. I knew of you from afar numerous years ago. I mean, for me, Build in Public and are one and the same thing, and I've been super inspired by even what you've been trying to pursue. So to even have just got connected with you and then to build a friendship with you, thank you so much for all you do and to have me on here.
Today, I'm super excited to sort of peel the layers behind, the man that Shamir is and the founder that you are and the startup Eddie AI, which you've been working on. But also, what's been fascinating is you and I have had lots of deep conversations over the last few months, and I feel like any one of those phone calls could have been an episode, right? I walk away feeling so energized every time I talk to you, and I think you're one of the most brilliant and empathetic. I mean, my favorite combination of people, and you know this because I've said it probably a couple of times with you, are people who are ambitious yet humble. Like someone who's ambitious that you want to be around with that energy, but also humble and fun and relatable, which usually doesn't work like that, right? It's filled with egomaniacs usually. So I'm grateful that you're one of those. But Shamir, for those who may not know about ADAI, why don't we start there? Tell me this the quick one-line, two-line summary of what ADAI does and what brought you to that specific idea.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Eddie is really your AI assistant video editor built for video professionals. We
Got
really
it?
want to help video professionals craft stories and to take on some of the tedious work, the mundane work, the painful work that exists in post-production. And it's sort of all this all the work that we're working on. It should manifest into a cursor for video editing.
Nice. I love the positioning. This is new. Or have you pitched this to me? Or this is new, feels new. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's
I
getting.
think as we've kind of talked about a little bit in the past, the prosumer tools like Eddie,
Yeah.
I feel like are broadly going to fall into two categories, and you don't want to be in the middle. And those two extremes are, one is the cursor for X, which is cursor for whatever professional expertise. In this case, cursor for video editing, or it could be Lovable or Bolt for X, which is the beginner friendly, larger TAM, but like it's
Yeah.
much more beginner oriented, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be in the middle, right?
Yep.
If you are a pro tool, which I think Eddie, like from your positioning, then you have to talk the jargon. You have to have
Yep.
keywords like a B-roll, A-roll, and all that stuff, and
Yep.
really appeal to that audience.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are on the far end, on the left side, which is Lovables and Bolt, then you can't talk jargon. Jargon will kill you, right? So
Yeah.
so let me ask you this then: what do you think makes Eddie special? Like, how do you see Eddie in the market segment that you are in? If there are other competitors or if there are other incumbents, what do you think makes it differentiated and special?
Yeah, I mean, it's really that part for video pros. We are so deep in all things that a video professional needs, their workflows, their proprietary video codecs that they record on, their NLEs, non-linear editing systems,
editors.
the video editing applications. Eddie pulls their video assets, not videos, their video assets, their clips, their media from their bin, edits it together at their behest, at their direction, using their prompts, the customer's prompts, the story they want to tell, and those edits are back in their video editing application where they can polish it and color correct it, add music. It's this beginning part, what is known as the rough cut. It's that
Yeah.
beginning part that Eddie really thrives in, that most
Right.
people don't love. They love the
Right.
creative storytelling.
Right.
How do you make this story and bring it to life? How do you make it evocative, right?
Right.
But to get to that point, you have to go through hundreds and hundreds of clips, right? And Eddie thrives in those kind of environments. So you have all this raw footage, all this media. You need to make sense of it. Are these interviews? Where are the key sound bites? You want to put visual shots to bring the story to life. That's really what Eddie does. And so in previous times, you would have had an assistant editor. He went back into some of the history of video production. I mean, if you went back far enough, it was a really exclusive club. It was really, really expensive. Very few people even had film cameras that could record on celluloid.
Right.
We developed technology. So now at some juncture, there was digital cameras, right? At some juncture, there was editing software that you can edit on your computer. You used to have something like 2 VCRs, 2 decks that you would edit on, right? At some point, even before that, you would cut the film strip and tape it together to make a movie, right?
Which is crazy. We've come a long way from that cutting and taping.
Absolutely. So it was very common at one point to have an assistant editor, right, to help with this. And as now we all have incredible cameras in our pockets at all times. Now we all have computers with video editing software that comes standard, and it's easy to install the pro software. It's become easier and easier to record video and to distribute video. But it's really this piece in the middle to edit video that hasn't got significantly easier. And one of the things that has happened is that no one, to be honest, has an assistant editor by and large in the industry anymore. Eddie is really that. And so we hope to liberate the video professional, help them tell better stories through this.
Nobody would love to wake up and be like, you know what, I'm going to do 7 hours of grunt work, right?
Oh my God,
right?
No,
it's just so it's a no-brainer. So my question to you then is, what has been particularly challenging, in your journey with Eddie, in terms of getting this positioning right?
Yeah.
In terms of drilling this point home, what has been sort of rather surprising or rather challenging?
Yeah, honestly, it's been more the struggle has been more internal, actually. The struggle has been the internal journey to being actually, this is who we are for exclusively, and no one else at this current juncture of the company, and no one else. And to be able
the
to
choice there, right? Choosing is hard because you have to choose and stick with it for a while. And basically saying yes to one is saying no to the other 100.
Absolutely. Because there's a lot of use cases for video editing. So it's an incredible time.
Right. So I was going to say, what brings you, what is it about this particular persona that is making you come back to it? If I could persuade you, if I could give you $1 billion, would you switch? What is making you come back to that specific persona?
Honestly, it's who I am. It's where I started my career as a video professional. I started my career at the BBC. I eat, sleep, dream in the language of film, video, cinema. And so it's very natural to me. And so one of the quotes that even made me think about tech and moving my career into tech was what do you do when you're not thinking about work? That's kind of who you really are. That's what you really enjoy.
Yeah.
This is what I really enjoy, and it comes so naturally. And so it is coming to sort of equanimity within myself to be hey, we are for this constituency, and we are resolutely focused on that. And at this moment, no one else.
And I think the tech side of it must also have been insanely hard to pull off, because you're talking about a very, very pro tool for a very advanced persona, right? These
Yes,
guys are not beginners. They're not going to accept errors, right?
absolutely.
Like they're not going to be forgiving as much as like an average beginner would be like, yeah, that's fine. It's all
Yeah.
about precision. It's all about precision. Like you got to get the shot right, the cut right, right? The transition
And it
right.
reflects on them, right? They're
Yeah,
the
it
video
reflects on them. They're
professional
signing
who
off.
work on
Yeah,
behalf of somebody else. So
yeah,
it's them that
yeah.
it's like their work that is reflected in it. So
So
like it
here's
has
a
to be amazing.
here's a here's a $1 million question that I'm sure like some of the listeners would be asking, or I would wonder if I was listening to this. Like, you take a technology that's sort of AI that's predominantly LLM driven, right? And the challenge with that, I mean, the magic with that is you can chat with it. It's got this sort of the smartest data set. The challenge with that is it inherently slightly non-deterministic,
Hmm.
right? Like there's a small variance of not knowing if it's precise or not. Like I cannot guarantee like if it's going to be precise or not. I'm not
Hmm.
saying hallucination broadly, but I'm just saying that precision is very hard for it to get right? You take something like that, the technology that is a little bit inherently non-deterministic, and you apply into a field where it's all about precision, which is like video editing.
Yeah.
That's got to be the paradox. That's got to be the juxtaposition that's kind of like
Yeah.
hard to bring together. So how has
Yeah.
that journey been, and what's some ups and downs with it?
But if you look at it a different way, it's actually
Yeah,
imprecise in many ways too. Because if you take the same raw footage and you gave it to
yeah.
10 different video editors, you'd get 10 different video edits.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Not
you're
a single
right.
video editor would create the same exact edit
Yeah,
as another editor. In fact,
correct.
even if you looked at the same footage 1 month later, you would create a different edit.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And this is what's hard in the creative areas. This is what is hard with art, right? It's
Yeah,
like based on your experiences,
yeah.
it's subjective. You yourself are evolving.
Right.
You as a creator are evolving, right? You have new inputs, you have new life experience, you have new wounds. You yourself
Yeah,
are telling
a
see
different
stories
story.
differently.
Yeah.
And so, listen, like the whole craft, like that's actually the hardest part here.
Mm.
And what we learned in version 1 when we launched in October 2024 with your help was that the
Shout out to
launch,
product and launch. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
That brought us together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Was that Eddie was like too open-ended and commands were too broad. So users would type in, hey, Eddie, can you cut me a great edit? What does
We
great mean?
just
What do
yeah,
they think great means? And so that's
yeah.
what we learned a lot between version 1 and version 2. Version 2, which we launched just over a month ago, was that we had to align with the customer much better to know
So
when they say great edit, what do they mean by great?
so
What
yeah,
is
yeah,
it
how do you
that
bridge the
they're,
gap? How do you bridge the gap between their expectation and what your interpretation of their
yeah.
expectation? Like how do
So
you
what we, yeah, so the big unlock was like what Eddie does now, it aligns with you on what it is that you want. Let's like align with you on the target duration of that edit. Is it
Hmm.
5 minutes? Do you want a 7-minute edit? A 10-minute edit? Let's align on the style of the editing. Do you want it like punchy back and forth, boom, boom, boom? Or do you want it thoughtful, slower, or something in the middle? Let's align on the story framework. We're not just doing simple social media clips here. This is story.
Wow. Yeah.
What's in the intro? What's the
Yeah.
conflict? Here's some of the
Yeah.
things that we're including in the conflict. So we align on
Yeah.
the story framework.
Yeah.
And then
Wham.
once Eddie is aligned with you on these key aspects, now we have a better shot at delivering an edit that aligns with your intention.
So the alignment, does it happen through from a product point of view? Does it happen through like Q&A or discussion
Yeah,
mode
Q&A.
or oh,
Yeah. In
nice.
fact, Eddie tries to like push it forward. Hey, here's a framework for the story. This is a
Yeah.
suggestion. Do you like it? Do you want to change some parts? Do you want to
Mm,
iterate on it?
got it. So so does that happen like when you, let's say when I get started, I'm
Yeah.
walking through the UX of it. I haven't seen the latest version of it, which is,
Yeah.
which would have probably helped for this interview, but I haven't seen the latest version. So as you get started, and you just dump a big MP4 file or whatever
Yeah.
file,
Yeah.
and then before you prompt or before you drop that initial prompt, or is it after the initial prompt that asks you a series of these questions?
Right as soon as you import your interview
Yeah,
footage. So
yeah,
imagine like anchor this on a specific use case. Imagine you have a product launch video, right? So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
the CEO, the head of AI, the CTO, a couple customer testimonials. So you have like 5 interviews, each of them 30 to 45 minutes long. Now you have
right,
hours and hours of interview footage. You import that into Eddie. Eddie already does the work of analyzing it, trying to understand it, trying to anchor it on what it thinks are the kind of key messages and the
right,
really ultimate story that you're trying to tell here.
right.
Eddie asks you, what is it, how long is this edit? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Here's
Mm,
a suggested story framework. So as soon as you import that interview footage, it's already proactively
right.
pushing you and nudging you to try to align with you on, and try to understand what it is that you want to get out of the edit, and then does that edit.
That's brilliant. I love it. I'm so happy to see sort of the momentum and progress since early days when we first started speaking about this.
Thank you.
Um, and
It's
I
been
feel like
painful to get here.
I know
It's
it.
been a
That's how
fun
you
time,
know the
fun.
journey's just so
Yeah,
you know the journey's worth it, right?
yeah,
Including when we spoke in SF. I had an amazing time with you that dinner, and you remember it was like 80% of me asking questions, if you like, and you were like walking away feeling like, KP, sorry man, I didn't get to ask you questions. I'm like,
yeah.
no, dude, like you have genuinely such an interesting story, and what you're building is also super fascinating. So of course, like the
Thank you.
curiosity is off the roof. Um, so let's get into a couple more. So I had a fun sort of a segue question into a whole a different tangent, which is let's talk about your parents and your family. How would they describe what you do for a living? Do you think they get it? Like what
Um,
you're building?
Oh, what I'm building? No, not really. But they know that I'm in tech
You're
now,
in
and I
tech.
was in
Yeah.
film before, and
Yeah.
and so I'm not a doctor. They know that
Right.
very quickly.
They know very well, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so let's touch on one thing that from your time in film, which I know you're still partly, you haven't fully quit the film side of it. I don't think so, because you're in many ways this is sort of still in film, right? You're still
yeah,
surrounded by the same kind of ICP and the personas.
yeah,
If you reflect on, first of all, can you give us a couple inflection points for the audience who may not know your time in film, or in
yeah,
that domain? Give us like a couple things that like you've done, several
yeah.
projects, timelines, and then the question is, to wrap it up, what were like the most unique parts about film that you think still apply in tech?
Yeah, that's fair. So I started my career at the BBC, spent time in documentaries, wore a number of different hats, producing, directing, editing. The least favorite was the editing part for me. I was like a storyteller, so like really in the weeds, kind of going through interviews and finding like the key sentences someone says, the nuggets in an interview was like not that fun for me. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about themes and like topics, and like these are the messages I want to like imbue in this film or video. um, and so in some ways I'm just like building Eddie for the Shamir back when I was in documentaries actively, and
That's always usually a great way to build anything, right? For the younger version of you. Yeah, it's always a great, yeah.
last thing I did in that first part of the career in film and TV was like I was helping set up a documentary film festival in Qatar. Who hosted the World Cup recently. They did a partnership with Robert De Niro's Tribeca Film Festival to bring a film festival to the region. Helped to go out there and to help set that up, and my role was head of digital. And I started
Nice.
building mobile apps and web apps, and I just felt this like other love beyond storytelling that I really enjoyed. And then I saw a lot of kind of similarities between the work I was doing in film and stories to building tech products, which is like having an idea and mustering the wherewithal to like bring it into fruition.
Right.
To my now wife, I want to spend the rest of my career in tech, and I'm, after
Do you see a world in which you would
possible.
sort of you would still have one foot in the film arena?
I think I'll always go back. I still feel like I am one foot in, when I talk.
Through your product launches, the videos that you do are kind of like short films.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely, absolutely. That's definitely like getting my like creative filmmaking side out there.
right.
When I talk to customers, honestly, I feel like I'm talking to my
The
peers,
former, yeah,
friends,
peers, yeah.
and so
That's
yeah,
another
like
reason.
I that's the other thing I think came to understand, not through this company, but like really, someone had said it once, but I think it really resonated when I understood you have to love who you are building. Yes, you got to
Yeah.
love what you're building. Like, can I see myself working on this problem for 10 years? But like,
Yeah.
who you're building it for is really important. If you don't like
Yeah.
talking to
For 10
this
years.
customer group,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey,
You're
not,
gonna burn out. You're gonna hate it.
yeah,
That's why
you're
I
gonna hate
think
it.
it's you know me. I mean, we've talked about this many times. Like, no matter how little success you have in any domain, like if you are enjoying it,
Yeah,
you will outlast and you will just win because of the last man
yeah,
standing principle, right?
yeah,
Like I think, but that true love that you have, the initial love, it's almost like somebody has to plant that in your head. Like you either
yeah,
have it or you don't have it, right?
yeah,
So similar to you, my story is also like, I have one foot in film, one foot
yeah,
in tech, and I'm sort of living vicariously through my sister, who's now
yeah.
in Tollywood, and she's crushing. She did 20 films, and she
Amazing.
just signed a new movie this month. And I love, because there's some true love that I have towards film, which is hard to explain. Like, if I have to
Yeah,
rationally explain why do I love like film, it's impossible. Like, it's just I cannot sort
yeah,
of rationally justify. It's one of those rare joys.
yeah,
The same thing I have for startups. And I don't know why, but I've been sort of leaning into this from when I was like, I don't know, in my eighth grade,
yeah,
right? I remember pitching when I was in my eighth grade. I was looking for some money, and I was like, having family was having a hard time, and um, one of my friends lived in a richer neighborhood than we were, and he was casually telling me, like, there's a doctor family who came into his neighborhood. I mean, like, they became neighbors, and the doctor's daughter was in eighth grade, and I was in 10th grade. Was looking for some math tutor, and they were well off, rich enough that they were willing to pay 5,000 rupees a month. Which is like $50, maybe $60, maybe right now, right? USD. At that time, that was a lot of money for me.
yeah,
And so I was like, this is insane. Like, are you kidding me? So I went to their house. I introduced myself that I'm your neighbor's friend. Shoot my shot, right? And
yeah,
I said, I'm in 10th grade, and your daughter, I heard your daughter is, looking for you guys are looking for a math tutor. I may not be the most qualified, but I can promise you one thing. This is my first job. I will do whatever it takes until she falls in love with math, like the
hmm,
way I fell in love with math. So I
yeah,
didn't promise any grades, scores, those kind of promises. I
yeah.
promised the love, which I had for math at the time. And they hired me point blank. This is
That's
like
so cool.
cold pitch, literally. And so
Amazing.
that's when I discovered that, you can just do things, and this is business. And somebody told me when I walked out, they're like, KP, like, this is business, man. You're great at business. But I
Yeah,
never thought of me as a businessman. But I'm just saying, the same thing applies there.
yeah,
So if you don't love that journey,
yeah,
whether it's a pitch to the doctor, or if it's the pitch to
yeah.
anybody, for, your editors or whatever, you're not going to survive,
Absolutely.
because the money is not the answer. Money is not going to fulfill the void,
Oh,
for
for
sure,
sure.
right?
Especially like through hard times,
Yeah,
it's like that love, that sort of missionary zeal in the problem
yeah,
you're solving and who you're solving it for. I mean,
yeah.
that,
And it's also, it's if the customers see 4 products, and if they're all identically doing the same exact feature
Mhm.
set, they will always prefer to
Yeah,
work with the founder who gives a shit, who
yeah,
genuinely loves it, who's like
totally.
passionate. And
Absolutely.
so, I mean, we talked about this many times. Like, I mean, my advice to all the founders is, like, build something that you genuinely like. You give a shit
Yeah,
about. You love it. Don't fake it. You should love it,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah. Ideally, you want to
uh,
see in the world, because that's like that.
yeah,
That's like a motivation. That's like the
right.
first step.
There's a. I mean, a lot of filmmaker interviews I watch, and the recurring theme, I'm sure you know this, is that some of the greatest films were made because the filmmaker, the director, really just wanted to see that on screen. That's it.
Yeah,
Like, there was
absolutely.
no grand plan of like, oh, this might work because of this trend.
Yeah,
It was more so that nobody did this in this way, and I think it would be
yeah,
dope to let's do
yeah.
this. That's it. Like,
Totally.
Um, so let me ask you a fun question. So, what's one thing you believed 5 years ago about being a founder that you had to unlearn
Yeah,
and get out of it?
yeah. I mean, the biggest lesson, so I see a lot of similarities back to kind of a previous question and kind of relates to this question. I see a lot of similarities between filmmaking and being a tech entrepreneur.
Tech founder.
Again,
Yeah.
like, that you have an idea and you're like mustering the will to like bring it to life. The biggest difference and the thing that I've had to unlearn is that in film, when you hit export and the last frame is rendered, that's the end. It's over and you can't go back. There's this one film I made, and I don't really watch it, to be honest, like that often at all. But like if it comes up and sometimes people are doing a screening and they want me to come to it, right at the end, there's this like scene, and I don't know how we missed it. The editor missed it, I missed it, another co-director missed it, but the plane lands, and the sound of the plane landing is like 3 seconds later. I don't know. No one has
Oh,
noticed this. No one has noticed this as a viewer, but I hear it and see this
every
discrepancy
time.
every time. I'm like, and we can't go back. The film is printed, like it's done. And that is the biggest difference for me with building tech products. In fact, it's the opposite of like making a film in many ways. And I wish it wasn't like that, but it is that the cadence in this company, my company with Eddie AI, is you ship in 2 weeks. We put it out there. Oftentimes we're shipping in the same day, but at max we're running on 2 week sprint, putting it out there, getting feedback and iterating. And every week we rinse and repeat it. If not every single day, we're shipping, learning and improving. And it's very, very different. And you have to like undo that learning from like every frame has to be perfect, every note is
Yeah.
perfect,
Right.
audio levels perfect, the color, the white balance, like
Right.
doesn't matter actually in
Because you have
building
infinite
tech products.
chances to improve it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is
In fact,
it's an iterative
learning is
game.
way more valuable. The learning
Yeah.
is valuable.
Yeah. The
And
learning in the market, right?
yeah, absolutely. Putting this
Not
out
internally.
there,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Putting this out there, understanding whether it resonates with the customer, solves that pain point. That learning from that is way more valuable to the next iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll say one thing. Over time, when I first started following great founders and just kind of keeping up with all the tech, I used to really admire those who got the perfection right? Because I used to think like that was the holy grail.
yeah,
If someone's V1 had a very high standard, I thought like that,
yeah,
man, that's a great founder or whatever.
yeah,
Actually, over time, I changed my mind about that. Like this, the way
yeah,
you mentioned, I almost think if someone's V1 is too good, I'm like, they're gonna
yeah,
freaking fail. Like I
yeah,
know that they're putting so much ego on that V1, and
yeah,
just to give you context, I mean, I love Kevin Systrom, but I'm just saying, like Kevin Systrom's the news feed thing. I forgot the name of it. The V1 was like so
yeah,
perfected because
yeah,
they came from Instagram success, and
yeah,
I was like, no way in hell this is gonna take off. The same thing would
yeah,
happen with there was a vertical video. There was a Quibi, is it? There was a video. Remember, there was a little app where you could watch 7-minute clips of
yeah, yeah,
vertical, like
yeah,
was Quibi or something.
yeah,
They
could be.
overdid it. The
Yeah,
V1 was like
yeah,
overdid it, right?
yeah,
And you're like, there's no way in hell, like they're gonna. And you can
yeah,
almost now you can predict. You can almost like put money in the poly market and
yeah,
bet that they're gonna fail because what's happening, what they're signaling is they're signaling that their focus is on the first version of perfection, what they believe
yeah,
is the right for the market, as
totally.
opposed to co-learning with
Yeah,
the market. So every
yeah,
time I see a founder that's a V1's a piece of shit, but they're
yeah,
like replying, tweeting constantly, like asking questions about the V1 and engaging with the people who are cheating on V1, like they're gonna
yeah,
crush it.
yeah,
And then if within 2 weeks, like I said, 2 3 weeks, if they're like V2 is better, slightly better,
yeah,
that's the founder I'm afraid of.
totally.
Like that's the founder I'm afraid of. It's not like the one with the brilliant insight
Yeah,
one day and like whatever.
totally.
It's the
I mean,
iterative, formidable force.
I mean, look at Humane. I mean, let's
Yeah,
just say
yeah,
this was um, slightly adjacent, right? Like, say this was like a really great kind of beta version, but if they, as founders, went to the market, not like
yeah.
this is a polished, perfect next
Correct,
phone
correct.
supplement or replacement, but this is our first version. We'd love your feedback. Came to it with like modesty and humility.
Right.
You would have imbued
Yes,
that that inspiration, that excitement from like earliest adopters, but they went in being like, this is the
this is
next.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, like you're almost asking for people to shit on
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And
exactly. And
And
the thing is, I feel like it's so fascinating to me. I mean, because you and I, we kind of live in this world. Almost we've kind of personified what we're
yeah,
talking about so much that I can't even do it the other way. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
if Marquez Brown, if Marquez is cheating on me, I would
yeah,
love to spend time with him. You
yeah,
know what I mean? I would like take my human pin and be like, Marcus, tell me why this sucks.
yeah,
Like, you this sucks. I'm like,
yeah,
what's broken here? And
yeah,
he'll say something. I'm like, you know what? That makes sense. If it's not, then I'm like, you know what? Not for you. This part is not for you. It's for like
yeah,
somebody else, right?
totally.
But like, why would you not want to be
Yeah,
like so relatable and so with the community? I mean, in my view, that's like the absolute. It's kind of like, I mean, I can't even, because a lot of my listeners know this and you know this all. My brain is so wired to think this way that I can't even be a perfectionist if
yeah,
I'm going to try it.
totally,
I don't even have the patience to build something for 6 months without asking feedback.
totally.
Like, I'm too excited that I'll call you in the middle of the night and be like, Shamir, I got to show you something, man. Like, you
Totally.
got to see this
Yeah,
V1, right?
absolutely.
And so,
You know who
I mean,
has
I
a
think
really great blog post that inspired me on this was Reid
what is
Hoffman blog post,
ah
and the title is something along the lines of "If this blog post doesn't have spelling mistakes in it, I've shipped it too late."
too late. Yes. And Reed
If
is a
this
great example
blog
of that,
post
right?
doesn't have spelling
Let
mistakes
me
in
say
it,
it's
I've
too
shipped it
late.
too late. And he just says like it's really about like, your
And
first V1 is not going to be perfect. Just ship it,
bec-
you'll learn. Yeah.
because what's happening is, I mean, so much of, I mean, there's two big vectors that I think lead to, um, maybe three vectors lead to sort of a great, grand, amazing, unbelievable success in tech products. I think it applies to even to movies too. And I talk to my sister all the time about this. The three vectors, in my view, are one, the core insight and idea, like the instinct. The moment you have an idea like that, like a lot of people actually don't take action on that idea. They sit on it, they wait on it,
Yeah.
they let that like
Totally.
become a whole PowerPoint deck. You're screwed. The second thing is, it's
How many
does it
how many
resonate?
how many unused domains do you have?
I have like a 60. My wife's always complaining. Like
Hey,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
that's how
I'm
you know.
roasting.
I was a VC. That's like the
That's
first question. I want to see how
I want to.
many.
Yeah, exactly. My
Yeah,
wife always
that's the
complaining about
filter.
like, because if I say something about her shoes, like how many shoes do
Yeah.
you want, and she's like, don't even talk to me. Look at your domain collection. I'm like, you got me.
Yeah.
Um, so one part is the instinct, the idea, like the spark.
Yeah.
And it takes. I mean, it takes like months to get a great idea, right? I feel like I
Yeah.
have one or two good ideas a year. I have a lot of shitty and average normal ideas, like hundreds, but like one or two ideas. The second vector is resonance. Now, resonance, like how do you measure resonance? I think you have to have your own barometer of, is this a banger? To an extent, and then the rest should be like from other unfiltered people who are not sycophants, right? Like, for example, when the hackathon idea came to me, I initially knew, first of all, that was a great idea, right? Like, imagine if Bolt CEO did this, the whole framing I did, I was like, I knew this is a banger. And the resonance was like 25%. I knew that this is a banger. Like, you can tell from the framing of the tweet, I'm like, this is going to be, and the rest 75% has to be immediately tested by the market. Now, the longer you wait, you're not going to get the resonance. It's not a matter of if I wait 6 months, the market will react better for me. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually accidental. The
Mm-hmm.
third vector is craft. Now, craft is where you need the grit, you need the details. I always joke with my sister, like, I do the 1 and 2, you do the 3 for me, right? Because
Yeah.
she's amazing at the details, like,
Yeah.
but she's not good at 1 and 2, or she kind of self censors herself. And so you have to have a dreamy, dopey person like me. I'm like very dopey. I don't even need weed. I'm just like always dreaming. I'm sure you're like that too, because that's the kind of founder you need. And so you're like, what if, what if, what if?
Yeah.
And so you need these three things. You need that initial spark, and then you need that immediate resonance feedback, and then you need the craft.
Yeah.
What happens, I think, in industries like movies and also tech, a lot of people over-index on the third part because they see
Yeah.
Steve Jobs on stage, and when he presents the iPad, he's
Yeah.
only showing this, but he's not showing you
Yeah.
the other two parts. Where the
Totally.
first time he had an iPad idea, he would have probably called Johnny Ive and like,
Yeah.
Johnny, you got to hear me out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That 1 and 2 is happening in a tight loop. Like when you call me many times,
Yeah.
and you're like, KP, you got to hear this out, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you an example. A prime example of this was 3 days ago. I don't know if you saw my tweet. Late night, 11:30 in the night. I'm just kind of like, hanging out with Theo, who's next to me, my twin, the 9 months old boy. And I thought, like, what if I was thinking about vibe coding and the hackathon, like we had. But did you see we have now the hackathon has 80,000 participants.
Wow. That's incredible.
80,000.
That's amazing.
The world record was 50,000. So we definitely crossed it. Now
That's
we're gunning for 100K. And the funny thing is 100K was an arbitrary number that I made up that day. I don't even, I just thought it sounded good. So I put it out there. So I had an idea where I'm like, how do you raise the stakes even further? This is already getting a lot of publicity, but like I wanted to kind of even more percolate to mainstream. What can we do? And I had an idea. I wondered how many astronauts are probably out there in outer orbit? And I'm like, maybe Google knows. I Googled and it said there are literally 13 astronauts
yeah,
who are in ISS, 8
yeah,
of them in ISS, 5 of them in Chinese ISS. And my idea was like, what if you could vibe code an app from space?
yeah.
And it will be the
It's
universe's
so cool.
first out of the world app built in space. And it takes 10 minutes now with vibe coding to build like a
Yeah,
landing page, right? And I thought this is an idea. So I myself know that idea is a banger
yeah,
because when I share that, the way I frame it, I know it's already a banger. Now
yeah,
I put it out on Twitter. It took me like 5 seconds to write a tweet. And then I tagged ISS, I tagged
yeah,
SpaceX, I
yeah,
tagged the 5 or 6 astronauts accounts.
yeah,
And I was like, let's see. So
yeah,
Eric DMs me. I mean, Eric, CEO of
yeah.
Bolt's like, dude, this is insane. Like, you're driving me nuts, right? Because he replied there. But the loop of 1 and 2
Yeah,
is, I think, very, very key is my point. And then now to make that come to life, of course, we didn't get a response from ISS.
yeah.
Shame on them. Just kidding.
Yet. Yeah,
But the time will not solve for it.
yeah.
I think that's the part a lot of founders miss. They think
Mhm.
that sheer persistence and grit it won't solve. Now
Yeah,
it dissolved. The idea went nowhere.
yeah,
I'm back to normal. Like it
yeah,
didn't go to space, right?
yeah,
But a lot of founders, like you and I, smart founders, trip up because they think, "What if I wake up tomorrow morning and try harder?"
hmm
That's not how it works. Like the grit has to happen after resonance,
yeah,
not before. And I
yeah,
think this is the thing that I didn't learn back in the day because I would build like startups. I'm sure you know this too, where I would take an idea and I feel like I'm not getting right resonance. How about I apply 8 more months on this?
yeah, yeah.
It's not going to solve it.
Totally.
If you didn't get resonance, you didn't get resonance. So,
Yeah,
um, okay, switching topics. I want to know about the AI video editing segment and like, what is a contentious debate that is happening in your sort of segment that would surprise an outsider like me?
yeah,
Like, I'm sure there's not just one, like 1 or 2 debates, but like, what
yeah,
is one that comes to mind?
yeah. I mean, last year we heard a lot more that like AI video editing is going to take over the video editor or the human video editor jobs, right? And I think you're seeing that writ large in creative fields, some of this like fear. What's been interesting to me over the last number of months is that fear is subsiding. People are well accustomed to now using ChatGPT for writing a pitch to win the client video work, or Claude to help with the treatment or prepare for interviews. So we're seeing this kind of subside, and it's been interesting to see how like the time for, I feel like, for Eddy AI has come. That like
Nice.
it's like people are like, yeah, of course we're going to use this. Why would we not use a tool that helps save us time and does more work? For sure. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that we see. I think like the shift, and I see this as from myself coming from that industry to going into tech. The other
Yeah.
shift, like, been learning that I've had to do is like thinking about life more as like not as zero sum. I think when you're in the arts and you're in film and video, there's
Yeah.
only like a certain number of video channels that could
Yeah.
play,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
only a certain amount of money that goes into the
Yeah.
industry, and it's like
Yeah.
either grants are going to go this way, like to these 5 people or to those
Yeah.
5. And tech has a very, very different mindset.
Positive sum. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And so,
It's interesting.
it's
Actually, it's
been,
very brilliant. Yeah. I've never
and so,
heard someone articulate this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so like what we're trying to make the case for is like, hey, you can actually do much more, right? Like this isn't like, oh, now you're going to do less. Actually, can you make more money? Can you do
Yeah.
more, take on more work? Because now
Projects.
like half
Yeah.
the work is like you're passing off to Eddy AI. So, that's been really, really interesting to see that that's resonating. Customers are now upselling. So they were going to do an edit. Let's just take an example. They were going to do like a 5-minute video edit. But now they're like telling the client, hey, we can also do these other permutations. We can create 10 TikToks, 5 Instagrams, a couple other
Yes.
internal videos. and it's marginal for them because with Eddie, it's like able to like really craft those edits and already has the context, already has all the source footage really, really easily. But they're able to make more. So that's been really
Yeah.
interesting to see how
I
people
think
have adapted.
that's a really, really underrated point. I think with the innovation, everyone's talking about how AI saves you time, which it
Yeah,
does. But it makes you more productive, which doesn't mean you work less in a way. I
yeah,
mean, you work less on the shit that you don't want to work on,
yeah,
and you
absolutely,
work more on the things that really energize you. Yeah.
totally. And
Um,
you can make more money, right?
you
Like,
make more
you
money.
know,
Yeah.
they can do
So
more of the fun work they love and get paid
and make
more.
more money.
So
I
good.
mean, it's just wild. I mean, we're in like a unique window of time in
Yeah,
history
yeah,
where, I mean, I wouldn't trade, this time with anything else in the past, or
absolutely.
So, one question I have about video creation as trends.
Yeah.
What are some trends that you're noticing in your segment that may become more mainstream the next 5 years?
Yeah. Um, there's one tangible one, which is like I'm seeing people do a lot more multi-camera interviews, but generally the
Interesting.
trend is to up level the quality bar, up level the production values. In a world where everyone has a great camera on their phone,
Right.
like how do we stand out? How do we tell better stories? How does this video look better? So there's a lot of emphasis we're seeing in wanting to stand out from the
Mm,
rest. And
mm.
so I think up-leveling quality can mean a number of things, but one of which is like you're shooting in better cameras, you're shooting with multiple cameras, which communicates to the viewer this is like a high quality production.
High quality
Of course,
production.
the
Yeah.
story has to be better too.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so I got three more fun questions for you. Ready? How are
Yeah,
we doing on time? You
yeah,
good?
yeah.
Okay. Um, so if you go to college today, what are the three classes you're taking?
No, good question. I would say,
And you can
um,
take anything, and you can
yeah,
literally take anything, and it's not about w- going back in time and taking what would have helped you today. It's
yeah,
literally about today. Yeah.
yeah. I would take one filmmaking class, one class on early religion formation, and
Mhm.
another class on computer science. Filmmaking, because I think it's really, when you meet founders who can not only build, but also sell and tell stories, I think it's an unstoppable force. I think learning from some of the greatest storytellers throughout history, the last 100 years, is just like incredible learning, and to be able to like deconstruct different story frameworks, I think is really, really powerful. And I obviously love the visual arts medium. Number two is, I think like, I hope it's not sacrosanct to say, but this trade around like when you are building an early product, it has
You're like a
parallels.
cult leader, right? I mean, you have to be an evangelist. I mean,
Yeah,
in
absolutely. An
a
early call.
best case religious evangelist, and the worst
Yeah,
case cult leader.
totally.
Just kidding.
Absolutely. Listen, you can use your power for good or for bad. Every
Yeah,
day you
true.
wake up. You're selling, hey, what does this like Mount Everest look like? If we can summit it, and I think that it's a really like really understanding how to
So,
bring people on board, how to like cultivate and nurture a following, and take people on that journey and deliver. Duly deliver on that promise. I think is really really powerful.
well, and the third one was computer science.
Computer
Just
science, yeah. I still
so,
think that yeah, technology and
yeah,
code is incredibly
yeah.
powerful and
I'm trying to
liberating
think
for
of.
you. It's just magical. The thing,
I'm
like
trying to
you
think
can
of.
build stuff, like it's just like
Yeah.
incredible. And some people will say like, we don't, coding is, we don't need to like with all these like great tools. And I think they are really, really great. I think it's going to be empowering for so many people. But I still think like learning some of the principles around how this all works is
Is
just
still great
invaluable.
always.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll always be in demand, I think, too.
yeah. I tell
The
I
way
tell my
you,
wife that, our kids need to learn two languages, English and C++. plus plus.
yeah. I think that even the second one is merging to be I thought you would say English and prompting, because
Yeah.
I think. um, okay, so two more. If you could have, you touched on this a little bit earlier about some of the greats, and so it's sort of a extension of that. If you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would you choose and why?
Great question. Fun question. Yeah, I would say that the three
I mean, this
people.
is actually, I'm genuinely curious too, because
Yeah,
even as a friend, I don't know.
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, from history, I'd say that I have a lot of admiration for Steve Jobs, and I feel like
Yeah,
his time, unfortunately, was cut too short before his time, and I have lots of questions for him. I feel like hearing particularly hearing about what it was like to be ousted from Apple and that
yeah,
period, like as much as it's he was outside of the public eye. Yeah, there's some like books you could read, but it's like still feels like we don't fully know, and
yeah.
private time, and
That's
it's
the
like
that's the next. That was when he did Next, and he had a
yeah,
lot of challenges during that
absolutely,
period. Until he
absolutely. And next,
made a comeback.
wasn't
Yeah.
was
No, it
not
wasn't it. Yeah.
particularly successful. In fact, would be
Yeah.
considered as a failure, I
Yeah.
suspect. And so like that journey, that particular part of his journey, what he went through, but he grew so much, and he
Yeah.
also assisted in bringing about the birth of Pixar and the
Yeah. Which
success
is
of Pixar at
crazy.
that time. And
Yeah.
so he must have
Can I
like
ask you? Can I ask you? I got a fun question about Pixar, but like
yeah,
we'll yeah. You finish your train of thought.
yeah. So that was that on that one. Yeah, and
And
I got
oh wait, just Steve. You got to
no.
throw in two
So
more names.
and I got two more.
Okay.
It would be a toss up between Jesus Christ or Prophet Muhammad, and
Wow.
I think that to have a view and an idea and that is like considered even heretical
At the time, yeah.
for the time and place in which they were living to, and in the case of Jesus, to be even put to death or that, like to
Yeah.
believe something so deeply, and be willing to die for that. Man, it's a conviction on next levels.
Next level.
Yeah, and I'd love to chat about that. So yeah. And the third one, good question. On the third one, I have to come back to you. I would say that
Someone living.
yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of people. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
I would love to. I have so many questions for great tech entrepreneurs like
Yeah.
Elon. I'd love to like chat to Sergey Brin. I would love to.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many like great stories. I think like the core thing that I think I see is like there's the storytelling, and then there's like the behind the story, and this and there's
The
oftentimes
normal life. Yeah.
and some of this doesn't make it into the stories.
Yeah, it doesn't. Obviously, right?
So,
Yeah.
and I feel like that type of conversation you can have where you like really like what we're doing here with this podcast, where you can peel back the layers of the onion, where you can really get to know someone. I feel like
I wonder if 30 years from now, if somebody on a podcast like this, 50 years from now,
Mhm.
would ever think of you and me in that list and be like, you know what, I would have really killed to have dinner with Shamir from 2025. This guy, wow, he was epic. Because to even think that way, just to like think about the fact that I'm sure if you ask any one of them, they didn't really care or didn't really think, didn't really try to be inspiring. They were just themselves.
Yeah.
But the amazing impact they've had for decades, like
Absolutely.
Steve, for example, like it's just unbelievable. We're talking about him, about the things he did in the 80s now, which is 40 years ago. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question about Pixar was this, which is what always blows my mind about Pixar was the fact that he was basically approached by John Lasseter, I think, right? And is it Ed? I forgot his name. Ed. I forgot his last name, but those guys saying like, there's got to be a full feature length animation movie, and someone's gonna build this. Why not us? Right? That was sort of the pitch. And then he was like, he saw the vision and he believed. my curiosity is, any one of the rich, great tech people in that era could have done that. It was
Yeah.
Steve who saw the future and that this is inevitable, and he did it.
Yeah.
My question to us is, what is the next Pixar that we are missing
Yeah.
out
I
on?
wonder whether, I mean, that's a great question to ask him. I wonder whether that's what made him do
Yeah,
it.
I don't know.
Because
Or is it
my
or is it the
narrative,
talent
my narrative would be like, I think he probably just saw a kindred spirit
with
in
the
a,
two? Right,
like,
yeah.
he's coming from tech and these are, say, storyteller
Right.
artists, and he saw kindred spirit, and I think maybe it was just as simple as like, this would be incredible to work with. I don't know, like, who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
I mean,
question. That's the question. Yeah.
Pixar tried to sell software. Pixar tried to do
Yeah.
short commercials. I mean, like,
Yeah.
this stuff was hard, and they were just trying to
They were
survive.
doing, what was mind blowing to me was that for a while they were trying to do B2B. Can you imagine,
Yeah.
like, Pixar doing B2B?
Yeah.
Like, what? Um,
I'm so happy
okay,
that
so
didn't work out for them. I'm so
right,
happy. Can
exactly.
you believe if that worked out? Oh my God.
Oh my God. We wouldn't have Toy Story, man. Like, yeah, I
Wally.
mean,
Yeah. Toy Story.
Wally, yeah, all the. So, okay, the last question. I know we could go on for hours, but I want
Yeah.
to contain our energy into this one packed, high density episode that this
Yeah.
is, and hopefully bring you back in the future episode again. Um, what's one piece of advice you would give your younger 18-year-old version? Don't say like don't say things like, buy Bitcoin or anything like that, but genuinely.
Yeah. I just say, like, don't worry. It's all gonna work out,
Mm,
But almost like you need to have that discomfort in life,
yeah.
that
Would you have
you,
listened to yourself if somebody came to you, like the wiser graybeard Shamir coming to
oh
you and
no,
putting
not
you?
at all. No, my parents gave me lots of advice, and honestly, as much as I joke about them, they also like gave me a lot of freedom too. So
Yeah,
to like pursue the things that I was interested in,
yeah,
like filmmaking class in grade
yeah,
10, an
yeah.
elective, and they encouraged it. I want to like do the same for my kids. Is like letting them explore, letting them find their, nurture their curiosity to be able to just like play and have fun and see what resonates with them, where their interests kind of go to. And so like I want to do that for them, but no, I wouldn't have listened to anybody. It, it's like that's like a really good quality, I think, for entrepreneurs generally, is to have like a healthy disdain for rules and skepticism of advice and people telling you what to do before it crosses the line of
yeah, delusional, right? Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a great advice to also this don't worry thing. It's so hard in day to day. Like, can you imagine right now
Yeah.
as we go through after this episode is wrapped up and you will go back to your next meeting or the next a task on your list, and the narrative in your brain is not, don't worry, Shamira, it's gonna be okay, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, let's gotta get this shit done, I gotta get this thing out, this is like that, this is that. And but yet that is truly the most powerful two words you could tell your younger self, is that don't worry,
Yeah.
it's gonna be okay, right? So it's the paradox of,
Yeah.
that is what is true, yet it's hard to take it in.
Totally. There's like stress that's negative stress, and it's like
Yeah,
that, like push that aside. And then there's like
yeah,
the good stress, the good
yeah,
stress, like, hey, we're going to ship every single week,
yeah.
2 weeks, whatever it is. It's like
The
we're
problem
going to,
solving. Yeah,
exactly, like that's good stuff. That's good type of stress that helps push the company forward, push yourself forward. It's like the bad stress that is subtractive
that's
and
yeah,
almost limits you from like your own ambitions, from
yeah.
your full potential. Don't worry.
And I don't worry, it's great. That probably will be the hook, hopefully.
Yeah.
On the time. What was the most, or one or two super energizing moments for you in the last 6 months?
Honestly, the first customer, that was like really, really exciting. Was the first customer who put their credit card in. It was like we had
Yeah,
users, but were they real users? Did they really find value? And I think like, yeah, it's, and I know I'm gonna get tired of that. I'm like, wow, we've made a customer happy. They're willing to like,
yeah,
yeah, commit here, and it's awesome. that's definitely like exciting. We turned on subscription a few months ago, so that's been really, really great. And honestly, like the version 1 launch, and you sent me this tweet, and it was talking about, putting out your product and the promise of the product, and then getting the product and that promise gap
Yeah. Yeah.
to shorten and be completely aligned. And when we launched the version 1, it was clear to me that the promise of what we were building with an AI video editor resonates
Yes.
many groups of people,
The
many
PMF,
people.
right? The promise market fit definitely was there. It's very evident from the get-go. Yeah.
And so that rush, that huge surge of users who were excited, all the people I talked to afterwards, it was just like a huge excitement that we've been building this, for a year behind the scenes, working on this, and then to get it out there. And, it's like a film, like you've been working kind of in your small room, dark editing room for weeks and weeks. In our case, it was months and months. And then put it out there and you're like, will anyone like it? And so that was exciting that, again, the promise really, really resonated. We worked really, really hard to try to make sure that the product and the promise gap
align. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So
awesome. I mean, this has been such a fun blast, spending the last hour with you, Shamir.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue to see your journey from afar, continue to shoot your shot, continue to all the stuff that this podcast and you and what you're encouraging. It's hard for you to also see the impact you're having in little ways. I saw you from afar, and this concept you were sprouting out on Twitter all the time.
Yeah,
really resonating. Public. Yeah,
I think the older I get, and the more sort of success that I see in my career, Shamir, and this has become very, very, very apparent to me. And this is my new motto for the rest of my career: is that genuinely follow my gut instinct.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you and I have been raised by great parents and great families that our gut instinct is not gonna lead us off the cliff, right? It's not gonna do something immoral, illegal to society. So it's not that we have to worry about that. But most of the time, I've learned to really revel and enjoy my gut instinct. I'm always listening. What are you telling me? So even with the questions when I talk to you or when it's the questions that they're there, but also I'm like, where is my curiosity leading authentically? And it's so fun to live like that. I cannot tell you how lightweighted I feel in terms of carrying the weight of all the expectations of, oh, this is how I should do or whatever. I'm genuinely my compass is my gut feeling. Wherever it takes me, right? Don't worry, and just kind of follow that and see where it goes and enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
So
that's the nice part about getting older too, is you start seeing these successes. They start compounding together, and you find an inner peace and equanimity. In good way. And I hope that you always feel a good, positive discomfort. That is it's a good force.
As what's his Jensen would say, right? It's suffering. Is I wish ample suffering onto you. Which I used to really be what the hell is he saying? But everything we went through with Liam, I feel has been such a gift, and it's just, I mean, I think if the 18-year-old version of me would have freaked the F out, for the last 1 year or whatever happened in our house with Liam. But the version of me that I'm wow, I'm the equanimity thing. I'm you know what? I'm so proud of him and my wife and me and the family pulling through, and we wouldn't trade it for anything. So grateful. Let's keep our conversation and our friendship going.
And luck to Liam and the rest. I'm so excited to
Thank
chat
you.
to you. Thank you for having me.
I'll plug all the links. Yeah, of course. I'll plug all the links at the end of this in the chat or in the description. Follow Shamir on Twitter, LinkedIn. He's got a really fun product launch videos. You'll like it. So check it out. All right. Thanks everybody. It's a sign off.